Home Safety Hotline is a phone operator simulator game that is filled with dangerous, tricky, and deceptive creatures that cause great paranoia, which helps make it iconic among other horror games. Inspired by various analog horror series like Local 58 in Gemini Home Entertainment, the game has the player working for a company by the title name of Home Safety Hotline. Throughout the game, the player assists callers with whatever household troubles or pests they may be dealing with. These household hazards get more and more strange as the game continues, branching somewhat into various folklore tales with things like sprites, leprechauns, and elves. These folkloric entities get progressively more dangerous as the game continues, up until the player gets a promotion as Junior Supervisor. They are put through a test based on entities seen previously, and upon passing the test, they descend into the soil and receive a crown of plants and fungi. And various little goblins dance and cheer for their new Junior Supervisor. Weird, but cool. This overall gameplay loop of Home Safety Hotline does a great job at utilizing paranoia for horror elements, which also ties in well with its use of folklore, and how the folkloric creatures are often deceptive and tricky. The gameplay of Home Safety Hotline showcases this use of paranoia quite well. Throughout the game, paranoia is built up quite effectively, making the horror of the game itself mainly caused from the player's own mind. One of the hazards mentioned in the ad at the beginning of the game is called Metamorphosis, and it simply shows an image of an uncanny valley humanoid shrouded in darkness. The days after it gets stranger, with odd new household hazard info that is weirdly confidential, and the callers call more frequently too. Later on, Carol Regina, the player's supervisor, starts behaving strangely, speaking in an odd Old English sort of way.
Hark, employee. Lend thine ear once more. Supervisor Carol here again. I've updated thy permissions to grant thee access to all relevant household hazard information. Continue thy labors, employee. Soon thy time in the soil arriveth.
On the Thursday shift, the player receives an email from the company detailing the new office pet, an orange cat named Whiskers. However, on the previous day, one of the callers had a cat of the same appearance and name. The general gameplay and story of Home Safety Hotline sets the player up to be paranoid incredibly well, like from the video advertisement at the start of the game. The Metamorphosis hazard mentioned alongside the regular ones stands out for many reasons: its odd placement alongside the other common hazards, the strange vagueness provided from the plain title of Metamorphosis, and the frightening appearance of the image accompanying the title. Overall, this one simple video does so much at setting up paranoia in the player from the start of the game. The number of calls also increases throughout the week, each caller reporting more and more odd occurrences, which to them just seem a bit strange, but to the player means that the very person they are speaking to may face a horrible fate, one that the player cannot even hope to tell them because of the info being confidential. Like for instance, the caller that has the cat Whiskers has an entirely unknown fate, but is a very worrisome one, as the day after, the office now has a cat of the same name. Besides the great use of paranoia within the game, Home Safety Hotline also excels at its use of folklore in order to build this paranoia. The entities in Home Safety Hotline are mainly from various folklore, but they have been cleverly altered just enough so that they fit into the horror of the game perfectly. There are a lot of entities in Home Safety Hotline though, so only a few will be listed. Most of these entities are from various kinds of folklore from across the world. The first of these odd entities that are encountered in the game are hobs, which are small goblin creatures that come out at night making all sorts of noise while consuming dirt and grime off of surfaces, cleaning them in the process. Eventually these hobs metamorphosize into boggarts, which are large, hairy humanoids that can cause dangerous household accidents. They also react incredibly violently when a human becomes aware of them, pursuing any human who even speaks of them.
It's in my bedroom right now. It's watching me. I think it wants something from me. It's coming closer. It's coming for me. Ah!
According to sources such as Rydale Folk Museum and The Writing Post, around the 1800s, the tales of small, helpful goblinoids were quite abundant. These beings were known as hobs, with one B. In folklore, a boggart was essentially a small, hairy prankster that would follow around families and torment them with pranks. The hobs in the game and the hobs in folklore are very similar. They're both small goblins who clean, and even their names are almost exactly the same. The only difference between the two is how the hobs in the game can turn into a boggart, which is an entirely different entity in folklore. The boggarts in folklore are almost basically the same as the in-game ones, only difference being size, and how the in-game boggarts are much more violent with their pranks. While these changes may be very slight in the grand scheme of things, they still have a huge impact on the game and its horror aspect. A small goblin that evolves into a large, dangerous creature that follows a human whenever they mention it is much more frightening because of the anxiety of not knowing what it is. The changes made to these folklore creatures was to make them better for a horror game environment that mostly utilizes paranoia. However, the ways in which paranoia itself can be caused and how it just works in general should be established. Home Safety Hotline has a style of horror that utilizes paranoia for its scares, but just enough of it to cause some fear and anxiety. Paranoia can cause people to have thoughts or feelings of distrust or suspicion without good reason, like someone believing that someone is out to harm them or that something they have been told is not true. Paranoia can last for either a short time period or quite a while. Mild paranoia is normal for summer and a half, however. According to the Cleveland Clinic, there are many kinds of paranoid thoughts: mistrust, interpersonal sensitivity, ideas of reference, and persecutory. Mistrust is obviously the difficulty to trust others for little to no reason. Interpersonal sensitivity is the misinterpretation of nonverbal language as negative. Ideas of reference is the false belief of random events directly relating to the person having these paranoid thoughts. And finally, persecutory is the belief that a someone or something is messing with, attempting to harm, or even watching the one having these thoughts. There are many contributing factors to paranoia, like certain environmental factors and intense stress as well. Many of the types of paranoia seen above are represented or outright experienced by the player in Home Safety Hotline. For example, the player very likely feels mistrust towards the Home Safety Hotline company near the end of the game, mainly because of the strange circumstances surrounding them, which actually directly coincides with the ideas of reference paranoia type. Some of them may seem like very small concerns, such as two cats with the same name, but that's the point, because of the previous strange activities ramping up to those events, the player would very likely experience paranoia. Persecutory paranoia is by far the most present, however, because of the behavior or interaction that the entities have with humans, like how the boggarts causing dangerous household accidents like fires could lead to someone feeling targeted. As can be seen, the use of paranoia within Home Safety Hotline is both very well done for horror purposes, but also quite accurate to how it is in reality, and it ties in quite well with everything seen in the game. Throughout all of Home Safety Hotline, there is a lingering feeling of something being wrong. The player hears of these frightening creatures that may trick or harm callers if they give them the wrong info. This feeling is the power of paranoia. The Home Safety Hotline phone line advertisement at the very beginning of the game immediately sets up the player with paranoia by having its contents be almost entirely normal, except for the one single image of a frightening hairy humanoid labeled as the result of metamorphosis. Then later, the player would experience more and more of these strange and concerning occurrences. People speaking in Old English, or callers dealing with frightening fey entities. But they do not know about the true danger that they are in. Only the player has the access to the information about these dangerous creatures. Such creatures as the Hob, a small goblinoid that eats dirt and grime at night, making lots of noise in the process, and if left unattended, they may metamorphosize into the hairy humanoids previously seen, also known as boggarts. The boggarts are quite dangerous, following around any humans that dare mention their existence, causing house fires and floods in homes, and reacting very violently upon being seen by a human. There is almost no way for a person to know that they are dealing with something like this, especially with how the information about these creatures is confidential, and the creatures are also very good at staying undetected. However, with all the strange occurrences around a person experiencing one of these entities, they would surely be able to feel that something was off, something was just not quite right. Something out there is trying to harm them. This feeling is paranoia. Every single one of these occurrences throughout a home safety hotline shows one of the 4 types of paranoia, which shows how well paranoia can be used for genuinely really good horror. And this game in particular really stands out for using paranoia in this way. In the end, Home Safety Hotline really shines brightly for its style of horror, and for how interesting these old folktales are.